So again, to introduce another team is our regional coordinator for our northern region, Mari Kavanagh.
Thank you, Judy, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce the second team from the Northern Region. And this is a team from the Queensland University of Technology and their faculty advisor, Amelia Cunningham.
Testing.
1, 2.
You have 1 minute left in your setup period. You may begin your presentation.
I'm Isabel.
I'm Avi.
I'm Emmy.
I'm Luke, and we are
Enactus QUT.
Our team's belief is that economic empowerment through entrepreneurship is the best way to break the cycle of disadvantage. We work with 5 community partners to better identify the challenges that face the community around us. They know the people that need help, and we can identify ways to better help those people. So we've delivered 3 projects over 3 different levels of needs, and we're excited to share with you our progress over the past 12 months.
Introducing our longest running project, Discover. 13,000 refugees enter Australia each year, with the majority in Brisbane, settling in the southeast region of Moorooka. In 2012, the Multicultural Development Association approached Enactus QUT for help with migrant and refugee business owners. With 1 in 3 businesses in Brisbane failing in their first year of operation, we identified that we needed to help businesses. And therefore, we identified also that the refugee and migrant business owners seemed to fail economically because they were applying the same models and procedures from their home countries in the Australian business environment, which was simply ineffective. Furthermore, poor community perception of businesses in hubs of low socioeconomic status often drive local mainstream consumers away to surrounding shopping precincts, further decreasing the economic viability of businesses in those hubs.
Our solution was to collaborate with our local community partner, the Multicultural Development Association, to empower business owners in Moorooka to take control of their own business futures through a formalised business mentoring program to increase the attractiveness of the local business community.
To do this, we developed a strategic planning proposal, which allowed us to develop and identify key concepts that the businesses needed to learn. This encouraged the business owners to think critically about their businesses and encouraged them to identify their strengths and weaknesses, and develop a vision and mission statement. The strategic planning proposal was set up so that they firstly identified a vision and mission statement and internally identified their strengths and weaknesses and externally identified their opportunities and threats, so as to be able to develop a timelined action plan with troubleshooting options for the future. Our entrepreneurial approach was to pivot the direction of the project based on what the business owners identified as the more pressing issues, which was particularly important when they felt the concepts were too complex.
Over the past 12 months, we've worked closely with 6 businesses and delivered 15 intensive business mentoring sessions after over 80 hours of content development. Plus, we had 1 landmark community stakeholder meeting where the Queensland Minister for Multicultural Affairs noted that our project was the only one of its kind operating in Queensland. In Discover, we directly impacted 19 people and indirectly impacted 6,430 through strategic planning and sustainable processes. Strategic planning allowed us to tackle mitigate the poor performance of businesses and get them to focus on the future of their business and not the failure when they make their everyday business decisions. We made this sustainable by ensuring that the entire way through our project, the businesses were mentored and making their own autonomous business decisions.
I'd now like to introduce you to Wakana from Yeshibuna, who has seen the biggest improvement since joining our mentoring program. Following direct consultation with a student mentor, Wakana was able to implement the following 15 changes to his business, whereas before, he was using outdated methods of bookkeeping, ineffective marketing techniques, and poor methods to entice his target market. Some of our team's achievements have allowed Wakana to introduce brand new signage, a better booking management system, and a better inventory system to help him reduce his wastage. Discover has had such a positive impact on Wakana's business that he has been able to make lifestyle changes too, and can now take 1 day off work each week, and is no longer required to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Here's what Wakana had to say about the impact of the Discover project on his life.
Everyone very happy because what you advise us it works. And we take off. We used to work 7 days. Now the kids happy. If you're happy, I'm happy. We get 1 day at least to rest.
Furthermore, Wakana's wife and daughter have been empowered to pursue further education and are currently completing a certificate in hospitality, with another business feeling empowered and confident to be able to expand his supermarket business to a brand new halal butcher under the same brand. To facilitate further learning of the business owners independently of our mentoring program, we have been able to spend the last 2 months developing a series of targeted online podcasts, the first of which is due to go live next week. We hope that these podcasts will be an effective and efficient means for the businesses to think critically about their businesses, and we hope that it's an exciting development that will continue over the future. This is Discover.
Our second project is the One-Off Shop, created to target those from a background of disadvantage who are unemployed but who have the relevant skills to enter the workforce. 1 in 5 Australians of working age have a disability, but only 53% of these actually participate in the workforce. We believe the remaining 47% often have the relevant vocational skills, however, they lack the know-how and support to be able to utilise them effectively due to a background of mental illness, family instability and financial hardship. In exploring this social problem, we met with Communify, a local community-based organisation 20 months ago. They provide employment and disability support services in Brisbane. We surveyed their participants and gauged not only their pre-existing skills and knowledge base, but also the skills they wanted to develop further themselves. From this survey, we recognised that Communify's programs provided short-term reactive assistance, but they ultimately failed to provide for long-term change and empowerment.
After we identified the initial problem, we saw an opportunity to tackle another problem that we identified in our community: the huge volume of salvageable items that go into our landfills every day. So, our solution was to develop a social enterprise training program where we took 6 of Communify's participants and showed them how to use their pre-existing vocational skills to upcycle discarded materials and turn them into new marketable products. This was the beginning of the One-Off Shop. We initially funded the project through Enactus QUT seed funds. However, our vision is that in the long term, the project becomes financially sustainable on its own, with 20% of product profits going back into the project and the remaining 80% going to the participants themselves. We've delivered this project in 2 key phases. The first phase was focused on generating an income specifically for the participants in the project. We showed them how to take discarded wood and turn it into new bookcases and stools. We showed them how to take discarded bottles and turn them into candle holders. Now, what we expected was that our participants would be really focused on generating income from the products that they were making, when in reality what happened is that we found them that we'd empowered them in other ways. So for example, one of our participants has since gained a full-time job during his time in our project, and another has started her own seamstressing business.
These unexpected outcomes made us reevaluate the core purpose of the project. In tailoring the second phase of the workshops, we altered the primary focus from teaching the participants how to generate an income to social interaction and business and vocational skills development. Throughout the workshops, we encouraged the participants to work together as a team in developing the products, but also to take on the responsibility of creating their own marketable items. We recognised over time that the participants really grew in confidence, some even able to share their knowledge with others and facilitate the learning of others as well. The team mentored the participant with basic business knowledge from marketing and pricing strategies, and some even felt able to participate in the management of the project itself. We sold our products at a pop-up market stall, and it was a fantastic opportunity for our participants to interact with the customers and to be actively engaged in the whole production process. We received feedback from our customers that they wanted to be able to view a catalogue of our products online, and in response to this, we're currently in the process of launching our new website. This is a fantastic opportunity as well for our participants to really engage in that online business environment. Over the past 12 months, our outcomes have really reflected the needs of the participants. While some have found full-time employment, others who have been affected by social anxiety found the workshops a really safe place to grow in confidence and self-esteem. One of our participants, Wayne, found it a great creative outlet while also having the team's support. I'd now like to introduce you to Philby. Philby has been affected by Tourette's from a very young age. At home and at school, he found it particularly difficult to control. And one day at school, he blacked out and struck another child. After this, his parents abandoned him and placed him into foster care. And over the next 10 years, he went from family to family, unable to find support or rely on anyone. At the age of 35, he moved to Brisbane to start a new life. And just last year, he joined us in our project. Since then, he's created stools, candle holders, bookshelves. He's just completed his Certificate 3 in business and is now talking to us about starting his own business in custom building cars. Here's what Philby has to say about the project.
I started from that very first week. I have not left. I've been here every single week since. I am using these skills to hone my metalwork skills because they're pretty much all relevant at the moment. God knows when, or even if I do move away, I'm still going to be dedicating my Tuesdays to be here come hell or high water.
During this project, we've seen 2 additional outcomes with our community partners. Firstly, our initial partner Communify has since introduced a new database to better track their clients, as when we first started working with them, they weren't able to effectively communicate with their own client base, which made it very challenging for us and Communify to identify suitable participants. Our second partner, RecLink, they've since introduced a project similar to ours with vocational gardening skills. This project has impacted directly on 15 people. We've introduced 21 workshops, over 63 workshop hours, and created 25 products.
In the long term, Enactus QUT have a vision to leave the running and management of the project in the hands of the participants and for the students to take more of an advisory role in the process. This is the one-off shop.
Now I'm so proud to introduce our newest project, Many Ways Forward. Just 2 months ago, we met with our newest project partner, Sisters Inside, to develop Many Ways Forward in recognition of the critical transition from custody to community. Upon release, female offenders' complex circumstances have been intensified by the trauma of imprisonment, with many returning to circumstances of poverty, aggravated mental health, violence, drug abuse, and debt. Sadly, many lose custody of their children. Now, despite feelings of helplessness, many are desperately seeking to improve their future prospects. Unfortunately, in December of 2012, the Drug, Murray and Special Circumstances Court were closed. This has led to the decline in the quality and availability of community support programs, making it extraordinarily difficult for these women to take those initial steps to break the cycle. So initially we met with Sisters Inside with an innovative online business model where participants could learn and practice business skills over a 12-week course. However, upon our initial meeting, we soon learned that these concepts were far too advanced for participants, with 76% of female offenders not having completed high school education.
Our solution was to create a number of basic skills and life skills modules that were appropriate for those with low literacy levels. We could then package those up into a customised program for an individual participant. Unfortunately, our project partner for the initial pilot, Sisters Inside, was partially defunded, which meant that they aren't able to effectively develop these modules of their own accord.
Now I'd like you to introduce you to Robin, a single mother of 2, stuck on welfare and struggling to support her 2 children in a caravan park after a long history of unemployment, limited education and difficulty shaking the social stigma of her imprisonment. So for 4 weeks we delivered over 8 hours of customised training. Upon a SWOT analysis, we learned that computer literacy was the weakness that was hindering her employment prospects the most. After many attempts at trying to complete the Salvation Army computer literacy programs, she was unable to do so because of the full capacity, like so many community support programs. After completing our simple computer literacy module, Robin has been able to more effectively search for employment opportunities online, in addition to improving her technical skills, which she had previously struggled with. We recently awarded Robin with her completion certificate, which demonstrates her commitment, reliability and desire to change to a potential employer.
For the pilot of this project, we've directly impacted 1, Robin, and indirectly impacted 20 people in Robin's life and the Sisters Inside staff. Robin's now able to take control of her own learning, so she's looking to buy a computer so she can further practice her computer literacy skills. Plus, she's now enrolled in a specific recruitment agency just for single mothers. And we're excited to hear that since the beginning of our pilot, she's gained a number of new job interviews.
So our pilot program will continue to run for an additional 4 weeks. We will then reassess our capacity with Sisters Inside in preparation for a full rollout of the program of 6 participants. Our upcoming Enactus induction will help us meet those expanding needs of Many Ways Forward. Now, despite only being 2 months old, we already have a medium and long-term plan to develop the modules into a critical toolkit for community organisations, in addition to ultimately complementing community service orders for minor offences. Magistrate Christine Roney, the former sitting magistrate of the Special Circumstances Court, sees enormous potential in our project. She expressed that, as a community, we need more projects like Many Ways Forward, which address the traditional role of sentencing, namely deterrence, accountability and rehabilitation for these women. This is Many Ways Forward.
We are 26 students committed to economic empowerment through entrepreneurship over our 3 projects.
We are Discover,
The One-Off Shop,
And Many Ways Forward.
We are
Enactus QT.
We will now begin the question and answer period with our judges.
Hi, I'm interested in the figures in your outcomes about in Discover and the One-Off Shop, that over 6,000 people were indirectly impacted in the first and over 45,000 in the second. How do you arrive at these figures?
Sure. So in the Discover project particularly, we work with our Multicultural Development Association, our community partner. When we first began the Discover project, they were actually quite unengaged with the Maruka community. And since then, and being able to work with the businesses through the mentoring program, we've actually empowered the Multicultural Development Association to develop some night markets and walking tours to the area. So they're directly driving in consumers from around Brisbane to the area. So the indirect impact comes directly from the impact that they've had on bringing more consumers to the area.
And for the One-Off Shop, we're partnered with RecLink and Communify, and under that umbrella they have access to a huge amount of local and national community organisations, and often I've received phone calls from them through word of mouth and advertisements from these community organisations wanting to be involved in our projects as well. Thank you.
Well done. Just a question regarding Discover. So you say that you have refugee business owners and helping them out. You're working with a partner there. Do you have a succession plan to empower key people of influence in those communities, in particular the refugee community, that they can then carry this program forward?
Yeah. So when we initially founded the project, we approached a number of key figures in the area. So we initially started with the Acacia Ridge Community Centre for our pilot, and then we moved with the MDA to organise a stakeholder meeting in this phase that we presented today. So in that community stakeholder meeting, there was a number of the key players in the local market from the local African communities, and then we also had a number of the MPs and local councillors as well. So that way it wasn't just our project acting alone. We had the local councillor trying to clean up the area, we had the local community elders getting all the businesses on board, because often the biggest issue we have with refugee and migrant business owners was the trust and the relationship. So we had to build that first, and then we were able to begin rolling out the project from there.
Well done on your presentation. A couple of questions on the One-Off Shop. Whereabouts do you have your facilities in terms of the workshop that you actually use? And number 2 is, whereabouts do you get your recycled material that's input in the products?
So part of the partnership arrangement with Communify is they provide us with a workspace and also the tools and a storage space as well, where we are able to use the tools and the space and produce the items there. With that, we've also engaged people for OH&S practices as well, so we know we're doing all the right things. In terms of the donations, we initially sourced them from friends and family, but now we've contacted a few construction sites and sort of got some tips on where we can find leftover pallets of wood in particular have been very popular, and we often go around to those sites and collect them and place them back in our storage room.
Two questions, if I may. First of all, congratulations on a good presentation. I'd like to ask a question about Discover and Many Ways Forward, but I think they're interlinked. So on Discover, where you talk about mentoring, particularly with refugees, how do you ensure the right skill, capability and competence, particularly in the cultural context, to get the results you're talking about? But also with when you're working in a prison, how do you ensure you've got the right skills, capability and competence there? People might have the best intentions, but how do you get the best outcomes?
Yeah. So the common theme across both projects is that we wanted to make sure it was really easy for us as a team and for our student mentors to measure their outcomes with each individual. So all of them are based on a checklist-based learning approach, so we're able to track outcomes according to what we aim to get with each participant. So then when we look at Discover specifically, in terms of their capabilities, we actually had, if there was an issue with communication, MDA was able to provide a support worker who spoke the language of that person, and also the MDA caseworkers were able to advise us externally by telling us, hey, they actually told us this outside the meeting and that's the reality of what they want, but they were too scared to tell you. So we're able to adapt our program based on the indirect communication from them. In Many Ways Forward, we're working with them post their prison experience, so they have individual caseworkers for Sisters Inside. So we do an introductory SWOT analysis for us to understand more about them, but then much like with Discover and also the one-off shop, the caseworkers from our partner can tell us more about the individual participants, and that way we can guide their learning.
Right, it seems we've got enough questions answered. So your time has now expired. Judges, please join me in thanking the Queensland University of Technology. Time for a brew.
We will now have a break, but we will recommence promptly at 3:40 for our next presentation. So afternoon tea is served outside, but if you can come back in by 3:40 would be much appreciated.